don't believe in fate. I don't think fate is real. I can't believe that I haven't had a conversation about this already, but apparently I have not. I kind of just did like some key search words in a in like my podcast app for my own podcast, just to like filter and see if there were episodes that had the word in the description or title that said fate or everything happens for a reason, because I thought maybe like happens for a reason might be in there. And apparently I haven't discussed it. I'm sure that I have at some point, but not just the whole thing. And the whole thing isn't really much. I think that belief system in any... I think fate or that things happen for a reason is within any... How do I explain that? It's in multiple different belief systems, not any. It is in and of itself a certain type of belief, but it's incredibly varied for how someone takes that phrase and applies it to their more specific belief system, I guess. Whether it be hyper-religious or completely secular, I think that there's a foundation of everything happens for a reason, or fate, or predetermination, or there's like all these different degrees of it. And I think that's really difficult because I'm kind of just, very, very slowly coming around to just trying to accept things more. But to me, that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way it was supposed to happen. But I do think that for a lot of people, in whatever way, again, religious or secular or spiritual or whatever, that if that's built into your belief system, your values, your whatever, if you say, like, yeah, everything happens for a reason, therefore it is easy to accept. And for me, acceptance comes without that. Like, maybe that's why it's really hard for me to just be like, man, this sucks, but hey, that's just life. Like, it feels really weird, and especially if I go by people's belief in fate or everything happens, I'm like, why? Like, it just doesn't, because then it just makes me question so much about myself and why things happen and whatever, and it just doesn't, I don't know. There's people that talk about, like, you make your own luck, and sometimes they can hold that in tandem with a belief like fate or that everything happens for a reason. But again, I think it comes back to the acceptance piece. I think that in that type of whatever belief system or whatever you want to call it, that relies on fate or is activated by fate and how you fit into that and how you just accept things that happen. Again, there's a broad spectrum of like the person that you are. I think sometimes there's certain belief systems that, like, okay, that you're not in a spectrum of empathy or intelligence or whatever, like, because this thing you believe, you are very much in this box that is so specific and so, like, I don't know how to explain it, but just the belief of believing everything happens for a reason isn't as specific that fits into one box. So I think there's a range of people who believe that. And I think the acceptance part of it that I think it is probably getting to, I think is a worthy thing to believe, and it's something that I'm working on for myself. But that's not, I wouldn't call that a belief system. I believe that, no, I'm trying to accept things. I believe that, I don't know what. I don't know how to even use that in that phrase. I don't know how to alter the phrase for myself for it to make sense, because it just doesn't. But I'm attempting to accept things that it doesn't matter the reason. I think that's the thing, is like, it is also easier to accept things because you don't know why they happen, period. I don't think you can know why certain things happen. Obviously, there are some things that A equals B equals C, it's very, very obvious, or there's, as much literal evidence and proof in front of your senses that you could possibly have, and therefore you know why certain things happen. But there's so many things that we don't understand why that thing is, and I get really curious depending on who the person is, because some of these things, again, if you believe in a certain type of predetermination or fate or that, karma or whatever, sometimes it's incredibly tied to a very specific ideology and religious belief. So it's like easy to just be like, okay, that's why you believe that thing. Other people who believe those similar things are secular, or they're spiritual, or they're not tied to a specific, organization or something. So it's harder, and that's where I get really curious of like, okay, why do you believe that? Like, why would you believe that? Like, what makes you think that? Why do you hold that there? And I think for everyone, again, it serves a purpose of like of allowing you to continue with life. It serves the purpose in saying like you have to find a way to accept this in order to just move on with your day. And that's so much of like a lot of my stress comes from that and just like overanalyzing everything and whatever. But also, I don't have that belief of karma. I believe that, and this is where it gets tricky, is like perception is reality. If that is a thing that we're going to go with, and perception is reality, then I understand how people can say like, okay, yeah, I believe that things happen for a reason, blah blah blah. Like you just accept the thing, and then again, and acceptance to me is like it's related, but it's not the same. Like you don't. Some people that believe everything happens for a reason. I mean, you can get there. I think you can get to the acceptance piece without that. I hope, because that's what I'm trying to do, is get to that acceptance piece without everything happens for a reason, karma, fate, whatever. And part of it is just my own, like, how many things have turned out in my favor versus not. But that's where it gets to be this thing of, like, you've got logical fallacies and other things that are there too. But one of the things is that, like, well, if your perception is reality, and let's say you're a really positive person and you choose to see the good, or maybe it's not even a choice, maybe you just aren't able or aware or have the observational skill, whether in nature or nurture, or you don't have the ability to see all these things, and you have either made a conscious choice or not to only really recognize certain things, okay, then you don't have the context. You don't have the whole context that someone else may have, and everyone else is on a spectrum of that too, of like how much context do you have of your own life and the world around you, because you are unable to actually see or to understand or to interpret, again, these things that you experience. So I think that also plays a role. Yeah, I think that plays a role as well of just like that perception is reality and acceptance piece too, of just, if I want to believe, if I want to make things easier, if I want to believe that everything happens for a reason, then obviously I might only remember the things that make sense for that purpose, right? I can't remember what logical fallacy that might fall into. Like, there's a certain bias or something. Like, I just can't remember. But or confirmation seeking bias, something like that, I think might be adjacent to what I'm talking about. But where, yeah, you're only recognizing the things that support your argument, and your argument is that everything happens for a reason because it allows you to just accept things as they are. And I think there's a range. Like I said, there's a massive range of why I think people believe that, and some of it I don't have to be curious about because it's very obvious, and some of it I'm very curious about as to how that person gets there, because I see them as like an intelligent person, a valuable person, someone with empathy. They seem like a really good person. And especially when I was growing up, what was modeled for me in this type of, I believe in karma, or I believe in everything happens for a reason, or whatever, like that there's going to be some type of judgment even, or you get what you give is like adjacent to that, right? And I more believe in the chaos of the universe, and that things can be random. And yes, you can make your own luck, and you can work, and you can achieve certain things, obviously, because I don't, like, things aren't completely random all the time, not 100% of the time. There's things that I am making a choice, and I know that if I do that, like, I'm going to make sound, I'm going to have a sensation, like, things are going to happen. So, but there are things that happen that you don't understand the reason. You will never understand the reasons for certain things, because you can't follow it back to anything specific, so you just have to move on from it. And some people can move on from it without knowing, and some people have to create maybe this thing that's, I don't know, but I do know. I know that it happened for a reason. I don't know the reason, but I believe it did, that it exists for a purpose. And like, yeah, you could say that everything exists for a purpose. Like, there's a reason for every single thing. Like, there is. That nothing happens without a reason, but it's just within that sentiment of everything happens for a reason, so it's all going to be okay. Maybe is the implication, like everything happens for a reason, so so that was meant to happen. And it's like, but you don't say that about every single thing in your life. You don't. You don't apply it across the board. You can't possibly, because it's not a fact. It's not a thing that you can, like, there's always going to be a little bit of doubt, right? If something happens to you that's absolutely horrible, maybe you will be saying, this is my trial, this is my cross to bear, this is whatever. But I don't think you're thinking about it when maybe some of those little things happen to you, or you're like, why am I having just a weird bad day, or this person did this, and that's just what, I don't know. It's just a weird thing. But again, there's a healthy way, I think, to kind of get to that place, if that place needs getting to. But I think that it becomes a thing about acceptance, of like, can I skip all that stuff and just get to acceptance and say, I don't know why this happened. I don't need to know why it happened necessarily. Or like I've tried and I know that I won't get an answer, and therefore it's time to move on. Like, I've done everything I can, because if I'm seeking information, it's with the intent that I am going to use that information in a way to not create more harm, either to myself and or others, or to not have certain situations be that complicated when, again, they would be either causing harm or not efficient or just wasting time, which is all the same thing to me, really, as causing harm. To myself and or others, of just like, yeah, time, right? Like, that's a big one. So I think that, yeah, that would be the intent behind that. But yeah, I just think if I can just skip the other stuff, because it just doesn't make sense to me. Like, I don't see, if there's room for doubt, and again, this is also black and white thinking, like, I need evidence, I need proof, I need whatever, and it's like, well, why would you take that stance and believe that thing when you know that you can never possibly know? You can't possibly know that. And if you want to get to the place where, like, you're just trying to accept things, why do you have to have this middle step of spirit or karma or energy? Or, I mean, there's an acceptance in the place that I want to get to, basically, is like, yeah, everything happens because everything happens. Everything is. It was like that. That's kind of what I guess that is. Everything is. It just is, right? And I guess I have talked about that aspect before. I just don't know if I tied it in from this. But that was like, and it was an accident. I'll have to, for the YouTube channel, I'll have to make that an end card at the very end, that the conversation that talks about everything is, because like it was an accident as to how I ended up with that being almost like a mantra, or just like something that I could use to try to logic myself out of feeling anxiety, which is really difficult. But it's a way of diffusion. It's whatever. It's a method. It's a coping skill. So, I just, yeah. Again, like the thing of like everything happens for a reason. If you can just for, I know, again, for some people it's just a blind belief that allows them to keep existing, and I think that device is. I think that's the purpose of that device for anyone, is that I can actually keep existing in a happier state. Right? It's like, which pill are you swallowing? Like that's part of it too, right? Like red or blue pill stuff. So I think that it's not, I'm not saying that in a derogatory way, because it all is, because again, it's such a spectrum, I believe, of certain people that have this belief, and I just can't, it's not, like, again, the way that it was modeled for me was in a negative way for me, with just like specifically like organized religion was the model for that type of belief. And I think, again, there are people who don't have that and still believe everything happens for a reason, whatever, because it's a bridge to just being able to accept things and move on, which is what we need in order to just get through the days sometime. But I don't have that type of belief. I don't know how to grow that belief. I don't know why I would need it. It doesn't, because again, like, I can doubt it. If I can place doubt in it, it's usually very unsuccessful for me in every regard, right? Like, whatever the thing is, if I can place doubt in it, that seed of doubt grows rapidly in certain scenarios for me. So it's really tough, even to have relationships with people of any kind, when there's that seed of doubt, which is also probably rooted in insecurity, and then this, and then that, and whatever, right? So, anyway, I don't believe in karma. I don't believe everything happens for a reason, other than the reason just being that everything happens, and there is no reason.